So my title, Managing Climate Reduction, Every Action Makes a Difference. And my name's Rosemary Horry. So can we go to the next slide, please?
Yes, next slide.
So a bit about me. Well, I'm slightly younger than Fred. I didn't know Fred, you couldn't tell. So that's made me feel, it's made me feel good. But then again, I'm not as young as Gareth, so that's upset me a little bit. At school, on one of my report cards, and I'm not going to take you through all my school, etc., but said Rosemary would be brilliant if she could settle to something. She's got a butterfly mind and never settles. And that, I guess, has been the story of my life. I became an academic purely by accident. It was something that I fell into. It wasn't a deliberate plan. And fought research for so many years, fought doing a PhD for so many years, and finally got persuaded to do a DPhil, and I've nearly finished it now, so that is something. I'm a senior lecturer in geoscience, although if you ever ask me, I will say I'm a senior lecturer in environmental management, because geoscience is a bit too geology focused in my brain, and I'm much more the environmental management side of the sector. I'm also technical manager of the Decarbonisation project, and that's what a lot of this is going to be about. So next slide, please. Oh, my slide seems a bit, oh, there it is, that's better. I was going to say my eyes have gone funny. So decarbonise, well, we hear the data on the challenge of climate reduction and what's required to make actually those changes, and it's a huge task. And everybody's sort of going, yeah, well, we've got to do it. And then my opinion, and it is purely my opinion, not the opinion of any university that might be connected to, is that the government aren't giving us a big steer on this. They've sort of said, this is what we want, off you go. And everybody's left to sort of go, okay, well, how are we going to do that? And the terms, net zero, carbon neutral, carbon positive, it's very confusing for a lot of people. And it might be our day job, it might be the thing that we live and breathe, but for a lot of people out there and a lot of companies, it's really confusing. My research area started in ISO 14001, environmental management systems. I am a systems girl at heart. And then I got sort of sucked into the decarbonisation project, and I went, oh, okay, let's get my head around all this carbon stuff then, and net zero and all the rest of it. And it's really quite a bug when you get into it. It's an itch that you really need to scratch, and you do go, oh, that's really interesting, okay, let's and you get sucked into so many different projects, as Fred will tell you. There's so many different things that go on in the decarbonisation project, and you go, oh, I didn't know that about solar panels, or oh, that's interesting about biofuels. And there's so many opportunities for different work, and I think that's the glory of it. And because low carbon is such a new sector, there's not much out there. So actually, in research terms, it's great because you can pick a topic and just go for it. Another area of interest has been earthships, and you can see the little picture of a nice earthship that is on the screen. And that's the idea of building it, not that I'm going to do it because I'm far too old for that sort of lot now, but building your own property out of waste materials, using tyres for walls, using reclaimed glass, etc., and making it self-sufficient in terms of energy, food, etc. So that's another area that I sort of dabble in. And of course, decarbonise. We're talking impact here. We're talking about positive impact within companies. And that, I think, is where research can come to its own, where it actually makes a difference to people, to people's lives, to people's jobs, etc. But where do you start? That's the key. You just start. Just one simple action. Just getting a company or the organisation you work for to do one thing. Don't just do all the old same old stuff, because we've done that, it doesn't work. Change requires thought though, and planning and action. So that one small thing, you've got to think about it, you've got to find a way of doing it. What are you interested in? What is it that would make you get up in the morning? Where do you want to take your research? Because the world is your oyster. There are so many different ways we can go. And academics, well, they're always curious about things, aren't they? So you don't have to be in the same place. You can look at other things. Could your research link to decarbonise and help companies? Well, quite possibly, yes. And if you've been working and it's an idea you have, but you've not taken it out to industry or to an organisation, what's stopping you? The worst they can do is say no. Now, in the decarbonisation project, I sort of looked at it and went, oh, we're dealing a lot with engineering companies, but what about other things? So I picked on weddings as a different one, something so left field as to be untrue, really. How do you decarbonise a wedding without upsetting the bride or the family or anybody else? And I did some work with Tissington Hall as part of the decarbonisation project, and that is a picture of the glorious Tissington Hall, which sits in Tissington Village in Derbyshire. And we looked at the option for the wedding in terms of lowering the carbon footprint, but first and foremost, we had to look at the building. As you can see, it's Jacobean, so there are issues. It has single glazed windows. It is a grade 2 listed building. It has leaking roofs. It has all these issues going on, but it's a stunning venue to have an event. So the first thing to look at was what issues exist at the hall. So we looked at those. We looked at the storage heaters within the building. Again, oh, storage heaters. They have got some solar panels there. But again, solar panels on a listed building are a challenge. Luckily, they have the sort of roof that is flat, so they can hide them from view of the general public. Catering is a big thing with weddings. Well, top tip, avoid imported meat, particularly beef. It is really bad in terms of carbon, but you've got to weigh up that. Local produce is obviously better in a lot of respects. Certainly if you're thinking about something like asparagus, again, importing asparagus sends the carbon footprint through the roof. But it's very complex. So you'd need a catering company who were on board, who were looking at this. Because how many of us go to restaurants now that obviously it's more acceptable to go to restaurants following COVID and actually query what the carbon footprint is of the food that we're eating? How many of you wondered about the carbon footprint when you had your lunch at DMU? Was it actually announced on the lunch how much the carbon footprint was? Might have been. Invitations on the wedding list. I think the thing that came down here was to be inventive. Invitations. You can get invitations now. You could email them out again, but it's not very nice, is it? If you're having a wedding, it's a special occasion. You want nice wedding invitations, but you can get ones that are impregnated with seeds. So once you've been to the wedding, you can plant the invitation and watch some wildflowers grow. Benefit to the environment, the bees, and again, reducing the waste. In terms of the wedding list, why not plant a few trees? Most people who are getting married these days have all the stuff that they could possibly ever need. So why not say, yeah, plant a tree for me. Carbon offset your trip if you're flying over. In terms of flowers, if you're going to import roses or lilies from South Africa or anywhere really in the world where they're going to be flown in, it's going to have a carbon impact. So again, it's offsetting or go local. Have pot plants on the tables rather than bouquets of flowers that are going to be thrown away. In terms of attire, again, how many people feel pressured to wear new clothes to a wedding? New clothes that they may never ever wear again. Wouldn't it be better to put on the invitation, please wear something old? Wear something that you love and you're going to be comfortable in. Because we just want you there. We're not worried about what you wear. For transport, picking venues where you can get there on train is great. Tissington Hall, you can't actually do that. But what you could do is have a bus from the train station. And how much fun would that be? Having all your friends around you on a bus going to your wedding. You can stream the wedding for people who can't fly in or couldn't fly in due to COVID, or people who just go, actually, it's a bit of a long way to come. Being carbon responsible, I'd rather not. No offence. That means they can still watch it. Or elderly relatives who potentially can't make the journey, they could still feel that they are part of the wedding. Next slide, please. So all this was put forward to Tissington Hall as a way of changing how they operate. And that's what the decarbonisation has been about. It's been about working with companies and making a difference, suggesting new ways of thinking, providing data, educating, coming up with new inventions or being a soundboard for these inventions, and helping with improvements to processes or products. And that's what it's all about. It's about sharing academic knowledge with businesses to help them improve. Because while we sit in our nice academic offices and buildings and do our research, it's great. You might make the 3 or 4 star journal. How wonderful. Yes, it's great for REF. But what about the impact? What impact is that research having? And I think that's the thing that Decarbonise has really brought home, is the fact that it can make a difference to people in their day-to-day work on the ground. And that impact can then also be fed into REF. So how can you help them? Many of the companies want to change. They really, really want to. They hear all this stuff about decarbonise and low carbon, and they want to make that transition. They want help. They desperately need data, because it's the one thing that a lot of companies are struggling with. They want guidance, they want support, and they want your ideas. Are you ready to change the way you operate and to help them with that? Because it is such a great reward when you see the changes that they can make. Next slide, please.
You have 3 minutes.
Or is that the last one? That's the last one. That's fine then. So I would urge you, if you get the opportunity, work with somebody outside the organisation. Find a company that wants to change and wants to make a difference. If you can get funding for it, great. If you can't, can you do it as a knowledge transfer partnership? Ah, there you go, recent papers. So just a few of them chucked in there to show that, yeah, sometimes I sit in that sort of academic building and don't always talk to people, but I'm moving out. I'm doing more stuff that is phenomenological and gaining the opinions and thoughts of people to do with Decarbonise and how it's impacting their buildings, their businesses. So thank you very much for listening.